Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Mental Conditioning Monday. I'm your host, Elliot Allen, the mental conditioning trainer. How was everybody's week? We actually getting ready to get into a nice long weekend. Hopefully, a lot of people I think are off today. Tomorrow is a holiday. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. But I think a lot of people do actually have today off, as well as obviously the holiday is Monday. So if you had that, you get a nice long weekend. Hopefully you're out there enjoying it. Hopefully you're out there, enjoying your barbecues if you started them for the day. So we're not going to keep you too long. I know some people probably starting their barbecue, and if not, you're preparing your food for tomorrow, actually 4th of July. So hopefully everybody at least had a very, very powerful week, and accomplished their goals and kind of push the barometer to be able to move a little bit forward towards that big picture, to be able to move forward as the year progresses along. We have officially definitely reached the halfway point of the year. We're halfway down. Before we know it, we're getting ready to say, you know what? We're getting ready for the holiday season already. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that's how fast the year is going. Again, we are in July. We're past June. We're already in July, smack dab in the middle of summertime. Before you know it, it's going to start to taper off. The weather's going to start to break. Kids going to be going back to school, and that's the downhill shuttle right into holiday season. So it's right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Time doesn't stop for anybody. We're moving forward, but I think that's good. Progress is always good. Forward motion is always good because we learn lessons. We learn lessons through our lives. We have to be very, very cognizant of what's happening around us. But at the end of the day, it just makes us better. So let me get into Mental Conditioning Monday's message for this week, because like I said, I want you guys to enjoy your weekend, your long weekend. Mental Conditioning Monday's message for this week is going to be, you can't see what I can see. You can't see what I can see. So I'm a little bit inspired by this one. We had a pretty good boxing match on this week. It wasn't a major fight, but I'm going to draw something off of it. I actually drew a lot off of this weekend's fights. Slow it down a little bit for those of you that are not boxing fans. Stay with me. It's not really about boxing at all. To tell you the truth, it is, but it isn't. It's really a huge, huge, huge life lesson. This young kid, Jared Anderson, fought this week, who is, really, really a dynamite young fighter. The kid is, up and coming heavyweight. Good skill, good strong power, but he's very, very young in his career, and they're kind of trying to build the kid up. So Jared fought this weekend, and throughout the week, as they started to build him up, you saw him doing interviews. And he did an interview this week that was very, very interesting, and it was really a mindset thing. And I'm going to draw off of that because that's where this message kind of came from, because it also derives in our own personal lives when you say, you know what, you can't see what I can see. So he was doing a mentoring session with Roy Jones Jr., who is probably one of my all-time favorite boxers, certainly in his own right, one of the greatest boxers in the history of the sport. Just an honor, I'm sure, for Jared to be sitting across from Roy Jones Jr., taking in some advice. So what Roy was telling him in this really just a kind of a pep talk session, he was just trying to explain to him about, being able to have your focus on boxing and being able to have your big picture to be boxing, because that's the thing that drives you in the ring. He's telling him, when you're out there in the ring, you got to be driven to be the best. And that's going to make you go into the gym. That's going to make you train when you don't feel like training. When it's hard out there in the ring, when it's hard out there in training, you have to be able to push yourself and drive, because you have the talent to be the best. But you have to drive and understand that to be the best, you're going to have to go through hell to get there. And it was interesting. All of a sudden, Jared started crying during the session. He was like, I'm only 23 and I'm just trying to take care of my family. It kind of take everybody back. That's what I think what it said. This clip kind of went viral because it was like, wow, this dude started crying. But he had so much passion behind what he was trying to explain back to Roy Jones. So on Saturday, when he fought on Saturday, the commentator, they did another interview with him, and they questioned him about it. Say, yo, what happened? Why was you guys seem to get so emotional when Roy was talking to you? And this is where it's important. Now, here's where the mindset piece comes into play. Again, he's 23 years old, young guy. Does the guy say, what Roy was telling you, what did you think about that? He said, listen, I love Roy Jones. It was an honor to be talking to him, but I don't see it that way. He said, I'm not driven because of boxing. I'm not driven to be the best in the world boxing, even though, yes, I want that, but I'm not driven by that. So he was like, I didn't agree with that. I'm driven by the fact that I want to take care of my family. That is what's driving me. The drive to be that protector, that person that to take care of my family. That's the biggest piece that was driving him. And I thought that was such a very, very powerful, poignant moment, because for Roy Jones sitting across from him, he can't see what young Jarrett can see. Even though Roy Jones is older, he can't see that. Roy is not wrong. Jarrett is not wrong. But you can't see what somebody else sees. And that takes mental training to be able to do that. So even though he was saying, I'm only 23 years old, he actually did something that was really, really powerful to be able to say, Roy is a legend, but he can't see what I see. He can't see what drives me. Because if you grab onto the wrong things in life that somebody else is saying you should be motivated by that, when it gets tough, you're not going to be able to push through. Hence, Saturday night the fight came. He looked really good, but he had a good opponent. He had a good veteran that he was fighting against. He was doing good, doing well, but I knew he was going to have trouble because he had a good veteran opponent, and his veteran opponent was in shape. Shout out to Martin. And he clipped Jarrett. Boom! He clipped him, and he hurt him. And you've seen his legs do a dance. Jarrett had very rarely even lost a round up until this point, but he's a very young fighter. And that's when I said, wow, this is what we're talking about. Because now you're going to have to dig deep, and now you're going to have to figure out, well, what is it that motivates you to stay on your feet? Because he was hurt. He was really hurt to where he could have really just mailed it in like, yo, this is it. This is when the fight is real. That's why boxing is so powerful to me, because when that happens, that's that poignant moment where you're like, hey, do I really want to do this? And if he didn't have the right motivation, if he didn't have that right focus, and for him, it's his family. He talks about that as soon as the fight was over. He said, I'm motivated for my family. And he kept to that value of my family is what motivates me when I'm in this ring. And I thought that was, again, so powerful. It got him through that moment. It got him through that moment where he was hurt. I can't stop here. I got a long way to go. I'm not even the champion yet. I got a long way to go to make sure that my family is taken care of. And so that's what motivates him. So if you're driving off of something that Roy Jones said, that just to be motivated by boxing, he might be like, the hell with this, boxing not that important to me. But he found that thing for him. Roy can't see what he saw. And it's this way for us in our lives. And this is very, very much an important piece of mental training, because this is a good example, really, because, again, he had Roy Jones. And for us in our everyday lives, Roy Jones represents the world. Sometimes it's our family members, sometimes it's our friends, and sometimes it's our coworkers. Sometimes it's just the environment that we're in. That's Roy Jones for us as people. Because people are going to be telling us, like, yo, why do you care about that? It's not that important. You should be marching towards this. But you have to be clear on what you see. And when you know what you see, you have to now be clear to be able to have the mindset to say, you can't see what I see. You can't see what I see. So, and I'm not mad at you, because it's impossible. So what motivates me, I have to always stick to that. And that becomes really challenging in our lives as we have different people that are talking to us. And again, they're not necessarily wrong. Sometimes they are trying to push you away purposely, but a lot of times they're not. They just can't see what you see. But this is where the principles of mental conditioning come into play. Your self-evaluation is so very, very important to you, for you to really evaluate what's important to you. For the young kid, Jarrett, he was able to really do his self-evaluation and understand that I'm not suggesting, and I don't think he was suggesting, that boxing was not important, but that's not the driving force for him. The driving force for him was to make sure that I got to make sure that my family's good in the future. I don't want my family to struggle. I want us to be well off. And boxing is going to get me to that destination. So in that sense, that's what's driving him in the sport. And it's that way for us in our lives. You have to be able to have that self-evaluation. This is what's important to me. This is what's going to drive me. And so that's how you develop your big picture. It may be a little bit different from the way people want you to see the big picture, but that's what drives you. But you have to keep in mind always, they can't see what I can see. And it gets more challenging when you start installing the people into that position of they. Again, sometimes it's people that are very close to you. That's okay. It's not really something that's a deal breaker in that relationship situation, be it, your spouse, be it your mom, be it your kids. It's not really a deal breaker to where you're going to not speak to them anymore. But you just have to be clear on, we're not going to have this discussion because I know what I see. And you have to be able to march forward towards that. I always tell people I love to watch documentaries. And most times when you see documentaries of people who are successful, especially trailblazing people who are successful, you know, you always see that piece. And that piece makes my ears really turn up to hear that. Like, wow, they did something that everybody else was kind of like, yo, what are you doing? What are you doing? You crazy? But for them, it was like, you can't see what I see. And that's a hard thing to be able to do on the high level. And it's a hard thing to even be able to do on a smaller level. Sometimes even within our jobs, you know, you may have a position, whether it's supervisor's position or sometimes even just a worker's position, that I know that this is the right move under these circumstances. And I'm going to fight for this move. I'm going to fight for this move that I think is the correct move to make. You could be a supervisor and sometimes you could be the worker. So I'm going to challenge my supervisor on this one because I know this is the right move. This is the right thing that needs to happen for this thing to happen, that I want the desired results. That's a very, very important piece. I'm going to share with this a quick story as I end it off. I had the pleasure to go to a ceremony this week where somebody in Border Patrol got a promotion. And she stood up and she spoke. And she shared a story that was just mind-blowing. And it really, really comes back full circle to, you can't see what I see. She talked about being a rookie on the job. And her assignment for that day was to go and tend to somebody who had a death in the family. And when she got there, the person that was supposed to be there in death was not there, but the family was there, and the family was broken up. So her superiors told her, oh, the person is not there. You're supposed to go see, get out of there. But the family was there. She was there. She had a vision of what was going on, and she knew in her mind, this ain't right. This ain't right. I can't leave this family right here. They need me to be here. So she said, you know what? I made the decision right there. I'm probably not going to be on this job anymore because I'm not leaving. I'm going to be here. And she stayed there. Her immediate supervisor was pissed. And when she finally came back, she said, you know, we ended up going to the funeral. And she said, I knew I was prepared to, that was it for me. But the interesting thing was the overall commanding officer at that time looked at her and said, she said, I apologize. Like, I'm sorry. You know I didn't. He said, what are you apologizing for? We need people like you. Because you saw that was something there. You stood behind it. You stood behind what you thought was right. They can't see what you see. You were there. That's a powerful thing. And you have to be able to train your mind to say, you know what? I got to believe in that. And lo and behold, here he was, whatever it was, 20 years later, she reached the pinnacle of the highest possible position that she could have obtained. I would say her name, but I don't want to shout people out that, you know, I don't really know how to shout her name out like that, but it was a powerful piece that I was sitting there just to hear that story was just unbelievable. And that really, really speaks to it. That came to me just as I was doing this message. That really speaks to, you can't see what I see. And it will take you places, if you believe in that, it'll take you places that you never, ever imagined. As she stood up there and talked, she was like, I never imagined that I would be in this position. I never imagined that one thing probably is the thing that drove me throughout my whole career. So you have to believe in that. Believe in what you see. Believe in where it will take you. My name is Elliot Allen. This is Mental Conditioning Monday. Everybody have a great 4th of July. I'll see you right here again next week, Mental Conditioning Monday.